Hello everyone and welcome back. I've been playing around with the Siege rework update beta. They've been calling it different things. And I want to talk about specific issues in separate videos because I feel like it's really important to highlight certain issues with regards to sieges. This is an update that many people have been waiting, 9 years for? We did have a Siege update, I guess, for the launch of Warhammer 3, but it wasn't really as good as people expected it to be, and every now and then has been changed around. This is something that they need to get right at this point, though, and I think even Creative Assembly have outlined that too, because they've said multiple patches are going to happen to just fix up these problems, and I think that this is one of the biggest problems when it comes to sieges. And that problem is lack of variety. Variety is very, very important when you've got a world with hundreds of different settlements. There's over 500 of them. And the problem is that in most cases, some races have maybe 2, 3 siege maps. You can see how many different siege maps there are in the custom battle section, where there's around 35 or so. I'm not really counting the Tour of Rest ones because there's 3 maps for the same thing. It's just literally for Elfarian's campaign. But given that there's close to around, I want to say 570 settlements, if you make about a third of them or even a quarter of them major settlements, there are a lot of major settlement battles which are just the same map over and over again. So yeah, definitely map fatigue starts kicking in, and it's also the fact that a lot of these map layouts are reused over and over. Sometimes there are some slight differences, but I mean, you've seen the layout, it's basically the same thing. The Tomb King's Grand Cafe and I believe the Lizardmen share the same layout for one map, and considering that Grand Cafe is quite large, the Tomb Kings don't really have that many options when it comes to big maps, and same thing with the Lizardmen actually. It becomes incredibly jarring to the point that a lot of people are just skipping settlement battles. Yes, there was issues with Siege in general, pathfinding, the AI in general, certain things like the butt ladders, which I think they've done a fairly good job introducing the ladder tower stuff, because they do work quite well. There's still a few issues to iron out. It still doesn't fix a core issue. We're going to use one of the best examples because it's one of the most popular races in Warhammer Fantasy, and I would assume in Total War also, the Skaven. So the Skaven themselves have one siege map, right? Just the Hell Pit map. This was updated very recently, and we'll be talking about the map updates a little bit later in this video. The Skaven expand quite a bit. Ikit Claw generally builds up quite a decent empire. Queek Headtaker also. The other ones start to lack a lot, but when you're fighting the Skaven, or if you're fighting as the Skaven, this is going to be the same map that you're seeing over and over in a provincial capital. From recent playthroughs, I have seen Queek Headtaker getting a fairly large empire, and when you're fighting Queek, because in most cases he will declare on you, you're going to have to deal with him and you're going to be seeing the same map over and over again. This is the fatigue I'm talking about. Why would you want to see that same map? I've done live streams before, I believe with the Bretonnia playthrough when I was trying to get to 100%. It was literally just, it's the same map, it's the same map, it's the same map, and that gets absolutely boring. I don't want to play these battles anymore, but sometimes I feel forced to because of the auto-resolve. And just band-aiding auto-resolve does not fix the problem. There's a lot of times where band-aids come in, like for example the minor settlements, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but that's not a proper fix. The Skaven being as popular as they are should, in theory, have more than one battle map, right? This also affects you as a defender too. If you're playing as the Skaven, this is what you're going to be seeing if the AI starts to turn its attention towards you and attack you. If you don't have any armies there, or you just got small garrisons, you're not going to be having a good time because it's the same map over and over. Now, it's a gorgeous map. Sure, the pathfinding's atrocious, but this has been an issue since basically Rome 1. But I believe stuff like pathfinding fatigue does get offset when you get different visual aspects for the game where it keeps things kind of going. And this is very noticeable once you start looking at all the available maps. Lizardmen, 2 siege maps. Empire, technically 3, as one of them is the fort map, so you don't really see that going everywhere. Bretonnia, 2, and in most cases, it's just the one that you'll constantly see. I think the Empire is the most shocking one, considering that, 1, they have a lot of favor with the player base. You know, Karl Franz is one of the go-to characters. A lot of people really love the Empire because it's the starter for everyone's introduction to Warhammer Fantasy. why does the Empire, so popular as it is, so large as it is also, because keep in mind there's Empire City maps down in the Southlands also, and I believe in Lustria, a very small amount. Why are there no extra maps just to kind of give that variety? It's not a terrible amount of settlements, but when you start playing it over and over, you will notice the same stuff. It's also the case that Cafe, you know, popular as it is, and you know that Games Workshop and Creative Assembly, both of them, like, really went hard for Cafe. It's again 3 maps. It says 4, but one of them is the Gates battles for the actual Grand Bastion. Now, some races don't have this fatigue. Kislev doesn't, for example, because Kislev is a very small nation, so you don't have a lot of unique cities. Funny enough, 2 of these 3 maps are actually one very much used by Bretonnia, so you see it a lot, and the other is used by the Empire, which is like the new null format. But I think in total, Kislev has, what, 6, maybe 7 major settlements. So you're rampaging through Kislev, and while you will see the same map pretty shortly throughout your campaign, the benefit there is there's not that many, so you've got that refresh. The vampire counts, I think, also has a big problem here, because Drakenhof is literally just like the null city map, so you're seeing the same map very much instantly as you're rampaging through. It doesn't even really look unique. Well, I mean, it does have unique assets, but the layout is really, really important here. So Kislev, unlike some of the others, gets a pass purely because of the size of the country. It's noticeable when looking around through the world map when you're just like scanning around, because you'll see the Dark Elf lands very congested. It's mostly Dark Elf cities, so it's the same map over and over again. Wolf 1 the same, Bretonnia, the Empire. There's a few things that can be done here, I feel, just to kind of make it feel better, and I think that that's something that needs to be treated as a priority. The ass ladders is great, but the fact is that those ladders were the only real major change for this beta and what is assumed to be in 6.3. I'm not knocking it, but they need to start going after some real core issues with regards to, like, just in general siege battles, because they form a core part of the gameplay. So what they can do is the following. The first thing, and probably the cheapest option, is reusing map formats. In total, I think there might be around 15, maybe a bit more unique map layouts, right? Like completely unique. Start reusing them in the form of asset flips, so just basically what we've seen where, you know, the Kislev map can be seen by multiple factions, just using the assets from other stuff, and keep doing that to the point that the world feels a bit more open. Sure, it doesn't really solve the problem, it is the same maps over and over, but that means that you might see a layout that generally is only seen in Grand Cafe, for example, or a Imperial layout in Novgorod or in Lustria. The idea here is, while it's still the same thing over and over, you're going to be seeing it in different locations, and that means that the congestion in one specific area, Lustria is the perfect example, it will start to feel less of a visual fatigue. Another thing is start introducing more maps, but the problem is that I imagine that does cost a fair amount of money, and that will then eat into the development of a DLC or anything else for that matter. I rather the cheaper option of the two if it does mean that it's just going to benefit the game over than anything else. And this isn't band-aiding. There are perfect examples of band-aiding when it comes to Total War. I feel like what this would do is just get rid of a lot more of the fatigue, allow you to incentivize to do battles more. Sure, they need to do a lot more because right now what they're doing is nerfing towers, buffing up other stuff, and it's starting to feel decent. But more maps overall actually feel a lot better. This is why normal battles feel great. I mean, they don't feel perfect because AI, still needs a little bit of a touch-up, but if you look at the normal land battles, there's already a decent amount of maps as it stands. And it further got improved in a patch fairly recently where the quest battle maps were introduced into the campaign also. So you're seeing a lot more. You're getting the visual aspect changing. It's catching people by surprise, but in a very, very good way. So you're more incentivized to jump in because you're like, oh wait, this is the map from this quest battle. Weird that it's here, but great. It just feels a lot better. You're getting a lot more incentive to fight, right? And we need that incentive when it comes to minor and major settlements. Most of this video has been focused around major, but minor is an issue. So we're going to jump into the band-aiding now. Minor settlement battles suffer like the major ones, where their band-aid fix was, oh yeah, you're just going to see the minor settlements less. There's a chance of it just being a basic land battle. It's like, okay, well that doesn't solve the problem, it just hides the problem. Hiding the problem is just something that shouldn't be happening in this day and age, especially in a 9-year-old series where it's made a stupid amount of money, right? They've sold the game 3 times, there's a shit ton of DLC, people have been buying that DLC. The money has gone to other locations, you know, a lot of people have been saying hyenas and stuff, and we can't really use hyenas as an excuse at this point, it's been 2 fucking years. CA have re-hired a bunch of devs, a bunch of them have also gone to the unannounced titles and so on, which I imagine is a reason why Warhammer 3 is kind of lacking in terms of patches lately, but whilst this is still an active title, the attention and care should still be there. So yeah, minor settlements, major settlements, they're all kind of screwed here. And I don't think that this needs to be fixed right away. I think Creative Assembly stated that this is going to take multiple patches, and I agree, this is going to be a gargantuan effort of work. There needs to be a bit of a push there. The band-aiding hasn't solved a lot when you look at what's been fixed up. CA came in and fixed a few maps, and even then, I don't think much has been fixed, right? A Skaven map, a Greenskin map, and a Empire map. The Empire map had an addition of an extra lane and just some changes here and there. The Skaven map and the Greenskin map had just a little bit of shave off, right? Nothing really game-changing, if anything. In fact, I feel like it's harder to defend the Skaven map now if you're playing as a defender. It's a bit better for the attacker, but you have to keep this in mind. It has to be balanced for both the attacker and the defender. These maps didn't really need much changing. I don't think it's changed much with the pathfinding. I don't think it's changed much at all in terms of general gameplay. And that's a bit of an issue, because these were not the priority, I'd say, in my opinion, that needed to be fixed up. A perfect example would be this map. It's one of the worst. There are 2 massive blind spots without any towers. You don't have that much defense there, and it becomes kind of boring. I mean, it's very exploitable for the attacker if you're attacking, and again, some people would say, well, it's better for the attacker, but when you're stuck defending, you're kind of screwed here, right? No, never mind the bad pathfinding and then just the bad AI. There are 2 blind spots that should have been fixed up. This is a bad map, and it shows up with not only the Empire, but it shows up with the Vampire counts. When you're defending through that area, you don't have the benefit of towers, so you don't have range units as it stands anyway. It just feels like a massive oversight which is just completely ignored day in and day out. Never mind the pretty obvious broken textures that haven't been fixed since launch, by the way, and a lot of people do report this. It's just you can see under the map. It's super weird. And there are also other maps plagued with other issues, more specifically Greenskin maps, some of the like open world ones, the dwarf ones, and also the Skaven ones, where you've got atrocious pathfinding, very, very noticeable in the Skaven and the dwarf maps, because they're designed to just be not only a pain to attack, but also a pain to defend. But also, just like Skaven maps have really bad line of sight points where you should be able to see an enemy, but then it doesn't fire. The Null map, by the way, has a problem where the Hellblaster volley gun has issues firing from a point where you would be able to see. You would be able to shoot with a bombardment weapon. You can see that there's clear issues here, and this video is kind of hoping that it hits the right people at CA with the idea of this beta is almost done, 6.3 is upon us. Obviously, we're not supposed to expect like massive changes at that point. Like, I'm expecting 6.3 to be what we've seen in the beta, plus like the Lizard Man and the Tomb King update, and that's it. But for future updates, we can see a lot more. If they go, okay, now 7.1, because I doubt anything is going to happen for 7.0 barring the DLC, 7.1, we're going to fix a bunch of maps for the major settlements, and we're also going to start adding in some new asset flip ones, so you get more variety for this race and this race. Cool. 7.2, more asset flips. 7.3, start fixing up a lot of the pathfinding issues. Start fixing up the line of sight issues, or they could go in different priority groups. The idea is just start to fix these up properly. We need these as much as I think we need some race updates for certain factions and so on, because it is such a core feature. There's a lot of money that's been made from Total War Warhammer. Now they need to start investing some of it back. I know that this is not going to sound like a priority for a lot of players, and that's perfectly fine. I think the benefit is that, you know, this game is so large, people see that there's issues in other locations, and they're reporting that too. But I feel like, as someone who likes to play the battles, as someone who likes to see the cool shit doing cool shit, and I know I'm not the only one, this needs to start getting looked at a little bit better. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of discussion. I wanted to highlight this. I feel like it's important. There's going to be a few videos, I think, on the Siege update, because it's a very good start. It is genuinely a very good start, but it needs to start improving from there. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye.